Hi guys, what we're going to do today is the initial configuration of a Cisco switch. If you're studying for your ICND 1 exam or just going to take the 1 exam path, your CCNA, if you look on your list of topics that are covered by those exams and specifically look at section 2.0, which is LAN switching technologies, and look under that section for 2.3, configure and verify initial switch configuration. That's what we're going to cover here today. We're going to go through it pretty quick and actually show you a couple more commands that are helpful. Not necessarily in that section. One of those will actually be in the security section, but we're going to go ahead and do it here because it's good to do it right off the bat and you'll already know how to do it. So let's go ahead and get started. The first thing I want you to see is our prompt says switch 1. On a brand new switch right out of the box you wouldn't see that, it would just say switch. So that, because of that, we know that this switch has been previously configured. So what we want to do, we are going to start with a fresh configuration, like we've got the switch straight out of the box. So I'm going to use the command erase startup configuration. It's going to erase the configuration that the switch loads when it first boots up. So it's going to ask me to confirm that, which I'll do, and then I'm going to type the reload command, which is basically like rebooting, if you're familiar with that on a PC. We're not going to save that configuration, and we're going to confirm the reload. So right now you're going to see the switch reload by loading the startup configuration file, which is the file that we just erased. We're getting just about there. Alright, so it's going to ask us if we want to use the initial configuration dialog, which if you're going to go into the world of Cisco, you're never going to use that, so we're just going to skip right on by it. Say no. Now one of the commands I'm going to show you, you see how we've got all of this extra stuff popping up here, this logging information. A lot of times, you know, you'll be in the middle of typing something and this will pop up and just drive you crazy. So one of the commands that we're going to go over is how to turn on synchronous logging, and that'll keep that from happening. It's not covered in this section, but we go ahead and do that on all of ours just so that we won't have to deal with that information coming up and bugging us every 2 seconds. So here we are at a brand new switch configuration. You can see the prompt went back to switch. It did say switch 1. So the first thing we are going to do is configure our host name to be switch 1. So the first thing we're going to do is go into enable mode, and from enable mode go into global configuration mode. Now this is short for configure terminal, but you can type conft for short. So here we are. As you can see, the prompt is now shows config because we're in global configuration mode. So let's go ahead and change the host name with the host name command, and the host name we want to use is switch 1. And I typed something wrong. Yep, host name switch 1. And you can see our prompt changed to reflect the new name of the switch. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to configure a management IP address. So let me go back, and what we're going to do, I'm going to show you, well, and here's this logging I was telling you about that we're going to fix. I'll just hit enter to get to to the next line. But I'm going to show you command. You don't need to know this yet, but this command is going to show us all the VLANs configured on our switch. And you may not know about VLANs yet, but just know that brand new switch, Cisco puts everything into VLAN 1. So here's all of our ports. Port 1 through 26 are all in VLAN 1. So without even configuring any VLANs, you already have a VLAN on there whether you know it or not. So we're going to configure an IP address for our management IP on VLAN 1. So we'll go back into global configuration mode and type in the command interface VLAN 1. Interface VLAN 1 is not a physical interface, it's a logical interface for the management VLAN, which is VLAN 1. So the command to add an IP address is IP space address, and we're going to give it 100.10 space. You'll have to put the subnet mask on the same line. And once again, I fat fingered something. And that's all there is to it. So let's go back out. Show run. That shows us our running configuration. And go down a bit. Here's all of our physical interfaces here, our fast Ethernet interfaces. Here you'll see interface VLAN 1 with our management IP address. Alright, so next we're going to configure the default gateway. To configure a default gateway on a switch, you go into global configuration mode, and the command is IP space default dash gateway, and then your IP address for your default gateway. Next thing we're going to do is configure a local username and password. And at this point, we're not going to use this local name and password, but I'm going to show you later how we can force the use of that username and password. So from global configuration mode, just type username, and then what do you want your username to be? We're going to make it test admin, and then password is going to be Cisco. So like I said, right now we're not using that, but I'll show you what to do with that later. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to configure and enable password. So let me exit out. There we are in enable mode, and we're going to exit back once again. We're just going to go back in. So here we are at in our switch. We want to go into enable mode. No password, right? Let's force it to use a password. So our enable password is a password that we can use to do that. Command is enable password, and we're going to make it password. Easy enough. So let's go back out. And let's try to go to enable mode again. There we go. We're getting prompt for a password. Oops. There we go. So now we're back into enable mode. Next thing I want to show you is if we look at our running configuration, at the password we just put in, you will see right here, enable password. We've made it password. Well, guess what? Anybody that looks at that configuration is going to see that password, and that's not good, right? So go back into configuration mode, and what we're going to configure now is the enable secret password, and we're going to make that Cisco. And the command for that is enable secret, and then whatever you want your password to be. And we're going to go back out again. Alright, get back into my switch, try to go to enable mode, and want to type in password again, the one we set earlier. Ooh, look, doesn't work. That's because the enable secret password, if it's configured, it always overrides the enable password. So now let's try Cisco for our password. And there we are, we're in. And take a look at this running configuration. And you can see our enable password that we did earlier is password. And then look at all of this. We used Cisco for our secret password. So then what is this? Well, what this is your password has been encrypted. So anybody looking at your configuration is not going to get your password for enable mode, which is more secure, which we're always, it's more and more important to be secure every day with all the hackers that are out there. Alright, so next, we've done that one. Synchronous logging. Alright, that gets rid of the all of the annoying messages that are popping up while we're trying to type. So let's go back into configuration mode. And what we're going to do, now we logged in via the console. Now if you want to configure the console line, what you want to do is from configuration mode, type line, and you can type it all the way out, line console 0, sorry, space there. But it's a lot easier to say line con 0. So now you can see our prompt changed again to tell us we're in line configuration mode. From there, we can turn on synchronous logging, and it is as easy as typing in logging synchronous. That's all there is to it, and that'll stop those annoying informational things from getting in your way while you're trying to type. So now that we're in the line configuration mode, I'm going to show you another command. The exec timeout. And the exec timeout, what that does is if you're logged on to the console line, and let's say you're sitting here working, you walk away from a computer for 30 minutes, you come back, after the exec timeout has run out, it automatically logs you out, which is a good thing, because if you walk away and just leave your computer up at a prompt, anybody can go in and make changes. So you want to set that exec timeout to a short enough period of time that it helps keep you secure, but at the same time you don't want it logging you out every 5 seconds, because you're going to have to log back in every 5 seconds while you're working. So we're going to set it for 10 minutes for this example. The command is exec timeout, and that's how many minutes. So exec timeout we're going to set for 10. Another thing we can do in line configuration mode is we can set a password for that as well. So first thing I'm going to do is show you how to set the password. The command is just password, and we'll make it Cisco. But what I want to show you is that although that password is set, it's still not enabled. So I'm going to go back out. Here we're connecting to our console port. Didn't ask me for a password at all. So why is that? Well, you have to enable it. So let's go back to configuration mode, and then back into line configuration mode for console 0. And the command we want is login, and that enables it. So let's go back out. And here we are, just connecting to our switch. Boom. Getting asked for a password now. So that's our console password is set. Our enable password is set. Let's go back into, I'll tell you what, now what I'm going to show you is how to set up enable telnet. So just like we went to the console, we're going, the other lines are the VTY lines, and those are basically telnet lines. Some switches have 5 telnet lines, some have 16. You can tell that by typing the line VTY command to get into it and just put a question mark. Whoops. If I could spell 0 through 15. So you can see I've got 16. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to configure all of those VTY lines at once. Now, if once you're in this line configuration mode, basically the commands are the same as they are for the console. So let's go ahead and set a password of Cisco. And once again, we're going to tell it to enable that password. We're going to set our exec timeout again. Now, in the real world, it would probably be a good idea to set your telnet exec timeout for a shorter period of time than the console. But we're going to go ahead and set it for 10 minutes. And we'll go ahead and configure our synchronous logging again for that also, just to get used to doing that. So right now I'm not connected via a network connection. I'm directly connected via the console, so we're not going to test that right now. But we're just going to do everything through the console line. But let's go back to what I was saying earlier about the username and password that we set here. Now, what if we wanted to use that on our console port or our telnet port, our telnet line, sorry. How would we do that? Well, what we do, when we enabled that password by typing the login command, instead of using just login, use login local. Now that's going to use that local username and password database. So let's get back out. And now it's asking us for a username, which it had not done before. Our username is testadmin, password Cisco, and we're in. So we've done all of this. Next step we want to do is we want to look at that running configuration again. And let's look at all of our passwords. So we already talked about the enable password and the enable secret password, but we also saved password for the username and password field here. We can see it, right? That's not good. And when we look at our console line, boom, there's our password. VTY lines, there's our passwords. So we're still not as secure as we could be. So I'm going to show you another command that you do from global configuration mode. And this command is service password -encryption. Now what that does, that's going to encrypt any current passwords that we have, but also any passwords that we set from now on. So let's go back to our running configuration, take a look. See, now we've got an encrypted password here on our username and password database, and an encrypted password, which is still Cisco, but now you can't see it by just logging in or by looking at the configuration. So there we go. All right. So we've already done that actually, and we've done that. So we're good to go. That's the initial switch configuration on a Cisco switch. One other thing I'd like to mention is, as you can see, we're taking a look at the running configuration when we type the show run command. Now we can also look at the startup configuration command. Now why is that saying it's not present? Well, you remember when we started the lab, I erased the startup configuration. So right now there is no startup configuration. So if we were to reboot this switch right now, the first thing that the Cisco switch is going to do, it's going to load the startup configuration into memory. So all of our changes will be lost at this point. So if we want to commit the changes that are in the running configuration, which is what isn't currently in memory, then the command we're going to want to run is copy running config space startup config. And you can use the shortened version of that, which is just copy run start. So that's going to copy our running configuration into our startup configuration. And just hit enter to confirm, or to give it, it automatically gives it this file name. Just hit enter to confirm. So let's take a look at our startup configuration now. It's a copy of our current running configuration. So there we go. That's the initial configuration of a Cisco switch.